Welcome back to the Road to Great Health podcast, where we discuss natural solutions to today's worst health problems. I'm Dr. Kevin Linderman from Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic in South Louisiana, and I'm joined by my mentor, as always, Dr. Rob DeMartino out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Doc, we did it. We're back on the air.
We did it, man. Tech problems and holidays in between, but we are back.
Yeah. So it's been a couple of weeks, and I actually had to go back and watch our last podcast to remember what we talked about. I have slept since then, so my one brain cell forgot. The main thing that we wanted to begin with is last time we were talking about autoimmune, and I wanted to kind of recap our main point we wanted to get across. And so the main concept we wanted you guys to understand from that last podcast is the way we look at autoimmune is different from everyone else. Everyone else says the immune system is making a mistake and it's attacking healthy tissue. We say that the immune system is trying to help you clean up damaged tissue, but when it looks around, that's the only tissue that it sees. There's not enough good tissue. And so our concept with autoimmune is how do we make your tissue healthier? And when you do that, the immune system chills out. It says, okay, we're good here. Job done. And that's really the main concept. Doc, would you agree?
Yeah, it has to change the focus of looking at the immune system as an enemy that's made a mistake versus there's a problem that it can't solve on its own.
Right.
And when we can help the immune system solve that problem, we see those antibodies go away. Because if you think of it from the other perspective, I think I used this analogy last time, we have the greatest immune suppressive drugs in the world, right? When people have transplants, these are necessary things. They're important for them because obviously that's not their tissue. We don't want them to reject it. Because we could take somebody's immune system down to zero if we really wanted to, but that doesn't make the autoimmune disease go away. That right there is all of the evidence that you need to say it's not that this immune system is overactive. It's trying to solve this problem, and it's not going to stop. Your immune system's like the Terminator, right? It's going to do the work until the job is done, right? And it's going to fix this problem. It's going to keep going, but if you help it solve the problem, then all of a sudden the problem goes away. The issue is that the target of what the conventional medical world thinks is causing it is not really what's causing it, and the problem is over here. And if we don't focus on the right target, no matter what you do, you're never going to get that fix, and the immune system will never stop.
Yeah, and we got into some fascinating discussions about the mitochondrial DNA versus the nuclear DNA. And until recently, they didn't even know there was mitochondrial DNA. And you made a very good point that the mitochondria are damaged in autoimmune disease. And so, of course, one of the next main questions that we got was, okay, well, what is damaging it? And so we wanted to get into that a little bit today and talk about what are some of the main things that are damaging our cells and our tissues in 2025. And my gosh, the first thing I would say is just look around. What's not damaging? The list is shorter of what's not damaging us, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it almost feels like the deck is kind of stacked against you, that there's really no right you can do with any of this, that everything is going to hurt you, right? The food is bad, the lights are bad, the EMF is bad. And we have to come back to this idea that we are designed for 1,000 years ago.
Right.
We are not designed for this change that we have made really quickly.
Yeah.
Right. In evolutionary standards, this change has happened really, really fast. So we have to make sure that we're keeping that in mind of these different things, because right now, and this is all of us, right? This does not exclude you or me. We are all living the perfect lifestyle to cause autoimmune disease, which is why we're seeing it explode.
Right. And you think about it, the human brain has developed over millennia, and we've only had light switches for 100 years. We've only had cell phones with blue light on it for the last 30 or 40 years. And so it's like we're living in an alien world that our brain and our body is not developed for. And so a lot of our treatment that Dr. Rob developed is how do we get the human body back in the situation where it was designed to thrive and be healthy and functional and strong and as good as possible. And so a lot of our treatment mechanisms are just how do we get you back there? And it is a challenge in 2025 to do that, because we get a short time to work with our patients, and they're out there, in this alien world the whole rest of the time. So it's a complicated process, but with the program that Dr. Rod developed for this, we're still able to get it done. And it's just an amazement of the human body that we're able to do that. And so, Doc,
Yeah.
what I thought we would get into first is let's get into EMF. You mentioned EMF, and so let's get into that subject today. And then on next week's podcast, I would like to get more into the light, the blue light, the red light, what all of that does. And so when we talk about EMF, describe what we mean by that.
So EMF is short for electromagnetic fields, right? And naturally, the Earth itself creates an electromagnetic field, right? So when the Earth spins on its axis, anything that spins, think about like spinning a toy top, it'll create an electric field if it spins strong enough and fast enough. The Earth creates an electromagnetic field, and literally, it's what our body uses, our cells use to basically charge themselves. So at night, the electromagnetic field goes up and gets much stronger because there's no sunlight. So we're designed to sleep outside on the ground. It's no different than taking your cell phone and placing it on one of those induction chargers. So it doesn't have to plug in the port anymore, right? You just lay it on the induction charger and it charges the phone. That seems normal to us, but the idea of sleeping on the floor outside to charge ourselves is alien, right? We've kind of completely flipped things, like you said. So we're designed to be in that electromagnetic field and it charges our cells. But our cells are constantly looking for this field, right? Think of our bodies like a cell phone. We are looking for Wi-Fi, and we will connect to whatever Wi-Fi is there. So we're either going to connect what's naturally there, and the natural form of it keeps our cells healthy. They keep our cells charged. They keep our brain waves calm. Or we're going to connect to man-made electromagnetic fields. And it's an important distinction to make, right? Because there's electromagnetic fields that are good, and there's electromagnetic fields that are man-made, that are alien to us. And if we're connecting to those man-made ones, they infinitely damage our body. So what does that include? That includes cell phones. That includes computer equipment. That certainly includes Wi-Fi, especially 5G is significantly worse. Every time they go up a G, you and I see more complicated problems in our clinic. And the step from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 sounds linear, but the step from 4G to 5G was a huge step in evolution of what was going to happen. I remember you guys asking me in seminars, like, what do you think is going to happen? And I'm like, quite frankly, we don't really know. Like, we're not going to know it until we're in it.
Right.
But
which was in 2020, by the way.
Nothing else weird happened
Nothing,
then, right?
Nothing weird, dear. No coincidences there.
No coincidental things with that too. And it's one of those things where we have to look with EMF. Anything that plugs in creates an electromagnetic field, right? So we are surrounded by that constantly, always connecting to this alien Wi-Fi. And the point of it, simply enough, is it's radiation, right? It's electromagnetic radiation, right? You wouldn't stand with your face in front of the microwave, although I do see people doing that sometimes, which is wild. But that's bad, right? But now we're living in a sea of that. And think about it from a different perspective. In cancer treatment, the thought process is they'll do radiation to do what? Kill the DNA of a cell, damage the DNA of a cell, so that your immune, and if it's a quote unquote bad cell, then your body will kill it and get rid of it. But now we're living in the cesspool of EMF, and we're damaging our mitochondrial DNA, which is significantly more susceptible to radiation damage.
Uh-huh.
It's the same ideology that we're doing with radiation for chemo. We're just living it every single day and then wondering why these mitochondrial DNA gets damaged. Your immune system looks at it and says, oh my God, that's damaged. It's my job to fix it. It can't pull it off with the equipment it has for whatever purpose. And then all of a sudden, it sticks an antibody in it and says, hey, this is damaged. We can't get it fixed, and we can't figure out why.
That is so fascinating. And the way I like to talk about it is electrosmog. So if you remember, like from the early 2000s, they would show pictures of Los Angeles, and there would just be a cloud over the city. And that was real. That was regular smog. But now we're all living in an electrosmog. My gosh, I mean, just take my new truck. I mean, I drive a 4-door diesel dually, and you back up. If there's a car coming, it beeps and the seat on that side vibrates. If there's a car coming this way, it beeps and that side of the seat vibrates. I have a phone charger, a heads-up display. If I get too close in a parking space, it will beep if I'm about to hit something in the front. It's probably good because I have what's called a spirited driving style. But you know, you're just a vehicle these days with all of the sensors and radar and everything that's going on in it. Just that by itself is a very high source of electromagnetic fields. And we spend an hour a day, some people driving to work and back, in those electromagnetic fields. I mean, my gosh, imagine what a Tesla is. You're sitting in the world's most powerful battery.
On top of it.
On top
right? It's under you.
Yeah.
It's under you, right? It's not even in the front. Like, it's under you. Like, literally. I mean, we got to the point where we were going to change the couch in our house. And I went in there and I'm telling the guys, like, I don't want any electronics in the couch. And they're like, what do you mean? This one's got a phone charger. This one's got a refrigerator. This one's got the electric thing that puts your feet up. I'm like, I don't want any of that. I don't want to sit. Because now imagine you're sitting on your couch and your couch is plugged in. Most people's beds plug in, right? I had a patient the other day said, Doc, I'm super excited. I got a sleep number bed plugged in. I was like, you got to unplug that thing, right? Because otherwise you're sleeping in this field all night long. And we can get to the specifics of how electromagnetics hurt us, but being in those fields, it is 24/7. Our system never gets to rest. It never gets to heal. And we just keep accumulating this damage faster. It's just like working out. You damage faster than your body can rebuild it. You're going to end up in a bad way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doc, weren't you telling me a story one time that you had a patient that was having night seizures and it was where the power was coming in?
Yeah, I had a little guy that I took care of and they thought he had pandas. And when we were checking him over, there was some infectious-y stuff there that we managed to get cleaned up pretty easily, but he was still having these problems. And it was actually his mom we were chatting one day and I kept telling her that this isn't making sense. These patterns don't fit because we talk all the time about finding patterns. And she said, it's the weirdest thing. We went camping last week and he didn't have any problems. And I said, well, tell me about the house. And she's like, oh, we just moved in. When? 3 months ago. Wait, 3 months ago is when this started. Yeah. So why didn't you tell me that? She said, I didn't think it was important. She says, all right, well, let's go to it. What happened was the bed that he was sleeping up against was where all the electrical wiring ran up and down. So his twin brother was in the room too on the other side, but he wasn't up against it. So he wasn't having any problems, but the little guy's head was in the field. And when we measured it, the field was through the roof. So I got them. I'm like, we're going to play a fun game. We're going to sleep the wrong way. A guy recruited his twin brother. Like, we're going to sleep the other way. And I had him sleep where his feet was. Didn't have the problem that night.
Wow.
So we had to make a solution to basically block that field. We moved some beds around, blocked that field, put some sensors in there to kind of handle that. And it never, ever happened again. So we don't realize like you said, that smog, that was a great example because you could see that.
Right.
And that was like, you're like, I don't want to go outside. I don't want to breathe that in. If you could see what this was doing around us, you would be horrified.
If it wasn't invisible, we would have never let it happen. That's the thing. It is literally everywhere.
And of course, they always come up with the studies that say, the studies say it's safe. Well, look, the U.S. economy is based on technology.
Sponsored by AT&T.
Yeah, it ain't going anywhere.
Right.
70 to 80% of the research that's done by third parties says it's harmful to humans. Now, again, no research is 100%, but 70, 80% of it says it's harmful. And we know it's harmful in two very specific ways. The two ways that it hurts us is one, no matter what's happening in your life, you could have the greatest, calmest, best life ever. If you get exposed to electromagnetic fields, if you put your cell phone to your head to have a phone call, it will automatically put your nervous system into a state of fight or flight, even if there is no earthly reason for you to be in a state of crisis.
Yeah.
It tricks your nervous system to panic.
Yes, and what he's talking about, this is not some sort of like out in left field. He's talking about science. The way your nervous system fires is you have nerves that have to talk to each other. Obviously, I mean, think about it. If I'm going to wiggle my big toe, first I have to think about it. It goes to my motor cortex. That sends that down the spine through all the peripheral nerves to the muscles, to the nerves to the muscles of my toe. Now, your thoughts are the same way. If you smell an apple pie and it reminds you of your childhood, there's millions, maybe billions of nerves that are involved in that communication. And what ends up happening, the way our nerves fire, is you have a cleft, a space between one nerve and the other. And what ends up happening is an electrical impulse comes to the end of this nerve and it opens some calcium channels. And when enough of that calcium sticks to the other side of the nerve, it creates an ion potential, and then that nerve fires. And so the electrical potential comes, it releases calcium, it tells that other nerve it's time for you to fire. Now, what research shows, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Doc, it shows that it opens those calcium channels and just fires your nerves on their own. That's what electromagnetic fields do. Hello, anxiety, hyperactivity, depression, sleeplessness, you name it. And so it literally fires your nervous system. Did I explain that right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. What they're called voltage-gated calcium channels, we call them VGCCs, and voltage-gated calcium channels get excited by electromagnetic fields, man-made electromagnetic fields. And when too much calcium floods into a cell, it's what we call an excitotoxin, right? It causes it to get overly excited, and it's a toxic poisoning effect to that cell structure. So we get too much of that fight or flight activity, right? Like you're saying, nerves need to speed up and slow down.
Yeah.
Right? Your body needs to speed up and slow down, right? Like, yeah, we're talking now and I'm getting revved up because I get passionate about all this stuff. My heart rate's starting to pick up. My breathing gets a little faster. And then once we're off and I calm down, like my breathing will slow. There's a normal excess of speeding up, and then there's a normal balance of calming back down. But if we're always on the go, 24/7, right? That's where they say, oh, stress will affect us. Well, most people will say, I can't drink caffeine too late in the day because it'll keep me awake. But nobody thinks anything about staring and doom scrolling on their phone. It has the same electromagnetic effect as that caffeine does on your nervous system. Right. And then people, nobody who comes into our clinics who have health problems are like, I sleep great.
No,
like their sleep is hammered. It's one of the first things that always goes bad. But they're not connecting it towards these things because we would never, ever have to talk about this because it's new.
Yeah.
The only reason we even have to do these things is because we're trying to live in conjunction with all of this stuff that we really aren't supposed to be.
Right. This is a new phenomenon in the history of humanity.
The reality of it is it's a wild ideology that our bodies were able to even adapt to this.
Right.
It is a testament to the human body and human health that we were even able to adapt and survive all that we put it through within just the last 100 years.
It's funny. Doc and I talk about that all the time. As bad as it is, it's when you really know this to the level that certainly Doc does, it's amazing that we've even survived it. How much bombardment of everything we're dealing with in 2025. And it's a reason chronic disease is at an all-time high and it continues to get worse every year. It has to do, it's not your fault. It's not the genetics. It's not because your mom had it. It's just look around and look at the environment we live in, and it's like an alien planet.
Yeah. And we're, the more we get exposed, the more that our DNA damages, the more we will pass that on to children. Right. We're just going to get sicker and sicker as generations. And it will be, they always say it's survival of the fittest. Right. But really, and one of my mentors always says this to give credit where credit is due, is really now it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the wisest. Right. We're not under life and death danger anymore. Right. It's not like we're being chased by animals where every time we step out of our house, like, when we stepped out of our caves, we had to look left and right and made sure nothing was going to jump us. We're wired for that. But we're not doing that anymore. But we live under this constant stressors. And if you don't know these things and you don't know how they affect you and you don't understand that, it's what you don't know that's going to hurt you. And that's why I was saying last time, it's like nails on a chalkboard when they're like, oh, we don't know what causes it. I want to rip my hair out because I'm going, we do, but you're so embedded in that, nuclear DNA target that the medical system is built on and is probably never going to change, that you'll say those things. But we do know, again, scientists way smarter than me figured all that sorts of stuff out. My job was to read it all and, then hopefully come up with some solutions. But it is literally an IQ test at this point of what do you know and how do you apply that in your life? And it's tough to do, right? It's tough. There is no more off the grid. Where do you go?
Right.
So
Doc, would you talk a little bit about some of the technological advances connected with some of the major outbreaks that have been around? Like, I mean, I know you've talked about like the Spanish flu was a certain era, and then of course, we know what happened in 2020, and I think there's been other ones. Talk a little bit about that. I've always been
Yeah,
fascinated by that.
yeah. One of the most brilliant things. There's a book called The Invisible Rainbow by a gentleman named Arthur Furstenberg, who unfortunately just recently passed away. But it's a brilliant depiction of every time there is some change in the electromagnetic spectrum of the Earth. Now, that could be a naturally occurring phenomenon like solar cycles and things like that, or it could be a man made event. We see some sort of change in human health evolution, right? So in 1912, when the Spanish flu hit, they was right when they created electrical power lines that ran along the railroads, right? And if you look at where the outbreaks were, they ran a light right along where all of those electromagnetic, where that electrical wiring was. And people know this. I mean, I grew up in New York. I live in Vegas now, but I grew up in New York. And they used to talk about the cancer clusters all the time that lived under the power lines,
Yeah.
right? So it was the same thing back then. It just created a flu-like variation. Every time there's a solar cycle, we get these intense flu seasons. So when we jumped to 5G, we started seeing an intense push with COVID. Of course, there was more to it than that with labs and stuff, and that's a podcast for another time.
That'll be
But
our conspiracy podcast. Yeah.
well, yeah, what was conspiracy theory and then turned out to be true, and nobody cared about
Right.
it except
Exactly.
us.
Yeah.
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 But it is one of those things that we see this, and we just see that constant evolution, right? That there really was no diagnosis formally of autism until radar was developed, right? And one of the first scientists who ever really got canceled for this ideology was a guy named Robert Becker. He wrote the book Body Electric. The government hired him to check a big satellite that they were going to put up in the Midwest. It was to control all their submarines and communicate with all their submarines, and they wanted to see if it would damage all the people. And he did the study, actually trying to help them out to prove that it wouldn't, found that it would, told them. They said, yeah, but we're going to build it anyways because we really want to talk to the subs. Pissed him off. So then he went on 60 Minutes and did a whole expose about that. And he was one of the first scientists who was canceled. Right? Lost everything, lost his grant, came after, lost all that sort of stuff. For telling that story, that was like the 60s.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine what that is now in an
Right.
electromagnetic spectrum comparatively.
Wow, I've always been really fascinated by the history of all of that. Now, if someone has metal in their body, heavy metals, lead, mercury, which we find every day, lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic. So just like you can't put metal in your microwave at home and everything's great, if
Bad idea.
someone has metals in their body, obviously that's even worse, right?
100%, right? You put a nail in a microwave, you're going to get a spark. And that answers some of the question where, we talked about it last time. It's like, oh, it's a toxic burden. Well, we've seen plenty of people with really high metal burden in their system, but they're not as sick as somebody who has a lower metal burden because it depends upon the field that they're in. How much reactivity does this metal have? Just metal is very electromagnetic. So is fluoride. What makes fluoride so dangerous for all of us is it is the most electronegative element in that periodic table. It steals all of those electrons inside of our body. It pulls that in the electromagnetic gradient, which we need to power our engines, right?
Yeah.
So we need that fuel to power our engines, and it pulls it into the fluoride, and it breaks our ability to make energy. Just like the regular ideas, I talked before about the idea of the calcium channels. The other big thing that electromagnetics do to us, they hurt us, is they dehydrate us.
Mm-hmm.
So they dehydrate. I get patients all the time, and they have all these dehydration markers that'll come up on testing, and they're like, if I drink any more water, I will float away. How could it be that? What you have to understand is when we make energy on a cellular level, mitochondrial DNA is working, everything's working the way it's supposed to, we're going to make energy, and we make water. Our bodies make about 4 to 4.5 liters of water a day. Nobody really talks about that. It's all about the water we drink. So if that's dehydrating us, think about a car engine. You don't put oil in, right? It's not going to be like, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of friction in there. It's going to break down. If our mitochondria don't have water in them, they will break down. They are engines, and that's what EMF does to us. It dehydrates us on a cellular level. Massive damage. Fluoride, stealing all this energy. Metals, you're creating sparks inside of your body. You do not want stray electromagnetic fields inside of your body. It will lead to bad outcomes and damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is funny. Like, people didn't used to carry a water around unless they were crossing the Sahara Desert or something. And now you got these ladies at the mall with a 54-ounce bottle of water with a shoulder pack and a tube coming out of it. And they're still super dehydrated.
And they still complain, I can't drink enough water.
Yeah, because it's not the water they're drinking. Their cells aren't making water. And by the way, that water your body makes, your electron transport chain, your mitochondria make, is the most absorbable water for your cells. It's perfect water for your body.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, not to get too sciencey, but in the early 1980s, they gave the Nobel Prize out basically saying that when our mitochondria work, we make ATP. You may remember that from middle school chemistry, probably not. But when I was looking at it, even when I was in medical school, I was looking, I'm going, this doesn't make sense. Like, there's no way, like, this math isn't mathing, right? There's no way you can make this much ATP to run everything you need to make. And now we know that water holds a significant amount of energy as well. So the importance of that water to give our body energy on top of what we chemically make is a huge ideology. The guy who came up with that idea is the same guy whose science that they used to create the MRI machine, right? So there's no joke. So he was a brilliant guy. Again, just passed away fairly recently. But there's so much more. I mean, think about simple things like water, and we'll start talking about all the new stuff we learn about it, the interdynamics of it. But it just goes back to the point that exposure to these fields puts our body in crisis. And when we are in crisis, you cannot be in crisis and healing at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right? You cannot have an eviction notice on your door and be saving for retirement in 50 years.
Yeah.
They do not compute together.
Yeah.
Right? And we need this energy from that water, and it dehydrates us faster than anything else on this planet. We are not built for these alien fields.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Doc, listen, to close out the show today, why don't you give like 4 or 5 just simple at-home tips people can do to try to avoid as much of this electromagnetic field as possible? Because the thing is, you're not going to avoid it all, but if you can cut down a portion of it, it will be enough to help your body function and live better. So what would you say off the top of your head are some 4 or 5 things that people can start right now in order to reduce their level of electrosmog?
Yeah, so there's what we call the inverse square law. Means the further away from you that it is, the better off that you are. So at night, when you charge your cell phone, keep it at least 15 feet away from you, right? Keep it away from you. There's no reason to charge it right next to your bed. I had one patient, she was sleeping with it under her pillow while it charged at night, right? Keep that thing away from you if it doesn't need to be on you. To that idea, make sure that you keep your sleeping space as clean as possible. Anything that plugs in creates a field. If you have a lamp next to your bed that you don't use, unplug it, right? There is no reason for that to be in there. Even if you can keep your sleeping space free, make sure there's no Wi-Fi in your bedroom. Make sure you can shut the Wi-Fi at night. It's even better off. Actually, it's better to have no Wi-Fi, right? But keep those routers away from you. I'm amazed at how many people have computer equipment in their bedroom.
Right.
If you can at least keep that 8-ish or so hours of a sanctuary where you're EMF free, that is a huge step in the right direction. Never put the phone to your head. Always keep it away from you, right? Wherever I'm at, it's on speaker. I'm sorry if it annoys people, but I ain't putting that thing near my head. I've seen too many pictures of what it does to the blood glucose levels in your brain, right? So if you saw it, you wouldn't do it, right? If it was visual, all these ideas, obviously don't stand in front of the microwaves and different things like that, but you have to try to limit your exposure any which way you can, but especially when you sleep, because your body needs to calm down and heal at that point. If you put it into fight or flight, remember, you cannot be in crisis and healing at the same time, and all healing occurs when you sleep. Make sure your sleeping space, if your bed's one of those sleep number things or whatever, unplug it. Right? If there's a TV in your room, unplug it. We'll talk even more about that with lights and stuff next week. What you don't need is unplugged. Wi-Fi shut off at night. No computer stuff in the bedroom. Use airplane modes on your phone. Be mindful of these things because they are invisible, but they are hurting.
Absolutely. You see women putting their cell phone in their bra, and then,
Oh,
oh my gosh, she got breast cancer. It was from her family. It was genetics. It was not genetics.
yeah,
Right?
no, it's
Yeah.
always where those hot spots are, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, keep your cell phone away, charge it in the other room, turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Try to limit your surrounding of electrical activity. Um, just
I mean,
just
it's why I got these guys, right? Because these are air tubes, right? So there's no wires near my head, right? Anything that's got Bluetooth, like the cars that
right.
you were talking about. Same thing. When I got my wife her car, I was like, do I have anything that doesn't have all this stuff? And like, well, that doesn't exist anymore,
Yeah,
Doc. Like all these cars have that stuff. So I have hers where all the Bluetooth is disabled and she can plug it in and plug it into her phone
yeah,
so that it can do all the things, but it has to have a plug. One car I didn't buy because it didn't have the plug outlet towards it.
yeah, yeah.
So anything that's Bluetooth, you shut that stuff up. My kids make fun of me because of the way that these headphones look. I don't care, man. My brain is what got me here, right? So I'm going to
Right,
make sure that the patients
right.
need it to work. So I have to make sure that it stays good. It's just these little things that end up with big dividends.
Yeah,
And again, next week when we talk about light, it kind of compounds upon that as well too, for sure. But
absolutely.
just you'll be amazed when you become aware of it. You start looking around. It's all over.
Yeah. Toxic blue light and electromagnetic fields are like a Mike Tyson 1-2 punch, and we are just bombarded by those. So next week, we're going to actually go into the way your brain perceives blue light, red light, lightness, darkness, and how all of that throughout the history of humanity from millennia ago until now has changed. And we'll give you some real world tips on things you can do about that as well. Doc, man, today was great once again.
Fun ones.
Yeah, fun ones. All right, thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't miss next week's podcast. We're going to see you guys then.